The room went silent when Keir Starmer opened his mouth in Beijing. Every word he was about to say would ignite a firestorm back home, and he knew it. February 2026, China state visit, cameras rolling, the world watching. The Prime Minister leaned into the microphone and said something that would make Nigel Farage's blood boil. The British people were sold a lie about Brexit. Boom. Within hours, the political earthquake hit London. Farage didn't tweet. He exploded. Starmer is plotting to drag us back into Brussels, he screamed across social media. Reform UK War Room activated. Emergency broadcast. The battle everyone thought was over, it just reignited bigger, angrier, and this time with something nobody expected lurking in the shadows. But here's what makes this different from 2016. This isn't about divorce anymore. It's about whether Britain crawls back to an exit publicly humiliated. And the secret plans being whispered in Westminster corridors, they're darker than anyone imagined. Let's rewind 48 hours before Beijing. Starmer's approval rating hit 66, negative 66. The worst in modern British political history, worse than Truss, worse than Johnson's final days, worse than anyone. His own MPs were privately calling him electoral poison. Labour was bleeding support to reform UK at a terrifying rate. Polls showed Farage's party 10 points ahead nationally. 10 points. The government was in freefall, and Starmer needed a Hail Mary. Enter the China trip. The plan was simple, look strong on international stage, deflect from domestic chaos, maybe score some trade wins. But Starmer's team made a catastrophic miscalculation. They thought distancing from Brexit would win back the Remainers who'd gone cold on Labour. They thought moderate voters would appreciate honesty about past mistakes. They were wrong. The moment those words left his mouth sold a lie. The trap snapped shut. Not the trap Starmer set for his opponents. The trap his opponents had been building for him for months. Because what Starmer didn't know was this. Farage had been waiting for exactly this moment. Preparing. Stockpiling ammunition, and he had help from someone Starmer never saw coming. Picture this January 15th, 2026, a private members club in Mayfair, London. Dim lighting, leather chairs, cigars, whiskey. Nigel Farage sits across from three people. Matt Goodwin, the academic who became Reform UK candidate. Richard Tice, Reform UK chairman. And one person whose name never appeared in any meeting notes, a conservative backbencher. A mole inside the government coalition discussions. They discussed something called Operation Boomerang. The strategy? Let Starmer think he's safe, criticizing Brexit abroad. Let him believe the British public has moved on, that 10 years of distance means people are ready for nuance. Then when he inevitably takes the bait and says something stupid in China or Brussels or Washington, hit him with everything, paint him as a traitor, a Brussels plant, a man who never accepted the referendum result and is now trying to reverse it through the back door. But Operation Boomerang wasn't just about Starmer's words. It was about what's scheduled for May 2026, something the government has tried desperately to keep quiet. The UK-EU Leaders Summit, Windsor Castle, May 8th to 9th, 2026. On paper, it's routine bilateral relations, trade discussions, security cooperation, climate stuff, standard diplomatic theater, but leaked documents tell a different story. 3 words buried in paragraph 47 of a 200-page briefing memo, Customs Union Exploration. Those 3 words are dynamite. Because if true, if Starmer's government is even discussing Customs Union membership, then Farage's conspiracy theory isn't a conspiracy anymore. It's real. And that changes everything. Here's where it gets murky. The leak came from somewhere inside the cabinet office. Someone photographed the physical documents and sent them to a Reform UK researcher. The metadata was scrubbed clean professional job, intelligence level tradecraft. The leak happened 3 days before Starmer left for China. Coincidence? Not a chance. Wes Streeting, Health Secretary, and David Lammy, Foreign Secretary, are the suspected sources of the Customs Union discussions. Both are on record buried in Hansard transcripts from private committee sessions, saying Brexit has failed on economic terms and alternatives must be explored. Starmer publicly denies any cabinet discussion of customs union. But two separate sources inside Number 10 confirm informal talks happened in December 2025. Starmer is lying, and everyone in Westminster knows it. But wait, before we get to what happened next, you need to understand the pressure cooker Starmer was sitting in. Because the China comments weren't just about Brexit, they were about survival. Reform UK wasn't just ahead in polls, they were consolidating. February 2026, local election projections showed Labour losing 300 plus council seats. 300. The party was hemorrhaging working class voters in the Midlands and North, the exact people who swung to Labour in 2024 because they were exhausted by Tory chaos. Now they were exhausted by Labour incompetence. Starmer had promised stability in delivery. He delivered neither. NHS waiting lists up, immigration numbers up, cost of living crushing families, energy bills still astronomical. And worst of all, the vibe. That intangible sense that the government had no idea what it was doing. No vision, no fight. Just technocratic drift and cautious press releases. Farage smelled blood. On February 2nd, one day after Starmer's Beijing comments, Farage held emergency national address at 8 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Not a rally, not a press conference, a televised address, presidential style, shot in an oak-paneled room with Union Jack and Reform UK branding. He wore a dark suit, red tie, looked straight into camera, and delivered a 7-minute speech that political analysts are calling the most effective opposition messaging in a decade. Key excerpts. Keir Starmer stood on Chinese soil and insulted the British people. He said you of the 17.4 million who voted for independence were fools, duped, lied to. He said your democratic choice was illegitimate. Pause. Let it sink in. But here's what he's really saying. He's saying Brexit was a mistake, which means he thinks rejoining is the solution. And make no mistake, that's exactly what he's planning. May 8th, Windsor Castle, the summit he doesn't want you to know about. Customs union, regulatory alignment, free movement discussions, it's all on the table. Another pause. Lean in. They think you've forgotten. They think 10 years is long enough that you'll accept the betrayal. They're wrong. We will not go back. We will not surrender our independence. And we will not let this prime minister sell out our country to Brussels bureaucrats while pretending it's pragmatism. Boom. Viral. 4.2 million views in 12 hours. Trending worldwide. Wait, how did the public know that name? Lit up social media. Labour's response? A 200-word written statement from a junior minister. No video, no fight, no Starmer. The prime minister was still in China, watching his government implode from 5,000 miles away, unable to do anything except issue weak denials through spokespersons nobody trusted. But Farage wasn't done. February 3rd, today he released something nobody expected. A 22-page dossier titled The Brussels Blueprint, Evidence of Starmer's Secret Surrender. It contained leaked WhatsApp messages between cabinet members discussing EU relationship reset, freedom of information requests, showing 47 meetings between UK officials and EU Commission since October 2025. Flight manifest proving David Lammy made 2 undisclosed trips to Brussels in December. A photograph of West Streeting having dinner with a senior EU trade negotiator in Paris, January 18th. None of it was definitive proof of customs union negotiations, but together it painted a picture. And in politics, pictures matter more than facts. The dossier went viral immediately. Legacy media couldn't ignore it. Too detailed, too sourced, too explosive. Sky News led with it. BBC tried to fact check it, but ended up confirming most details while quibbling over context. The Times ran a front page story. Is Starmer planning a Brexit reversal? Labour was in full crisis mode. And here's where the story takes a turn nobody saw coming, including Farage. Because at 2 p.m. GMT today, someone else entered the fight. Not a politician, not a journalist, a whistleblower, a current civil servant in the Department for Business and Trade Anonymous, using encrypted channels, released a 90-second audio recording to multiple media outlets simultaneously. The voice is distorted, but the content is clear. I'm sharing this because the British public deserves the truth. On January 22nd, 2026, I was present in a meeting where senior officials discussed framework options for UK-EU customs alignment. The language used was dynamic alignment, phased regulatory convergence, and managed reintegration. These are not my words. These are direct quotes from the briefing materials. The meeting was chaired by a cabinet-level minister. I cannot reveal more without compromising my identity, but I can confirm this government is actively exploring mechanisms to reverse Brexit without calling it that. The May summit is not routine diplomacy. It's the beginning of surrender, silence, then chaos. Within 30 minutes, Labor issued a categorical denial, baseless allegations, misinformation, politically motivated, but the denial was too fast, too aggressive, too defensive. It didn't smell like innocence, it smelled like panic. Starmer cut his China trip short, announced he's returning to London tonight instead of continuing to plan stops in Japan and South Korea. The official reason? Pressing domestic matters require the Prime Minister's immediate attention. Translation: the house is on fire, and I need to put it out before it burns down completely. But here's the question nobody's asking yet: who benefits from this chaos? Obviously, Farage and Reform UK. But there's another player moving pieces on this chessboard: the Conservative Party. They've been quiet through this whole saga. Too quiet. Kemi Badenoch, Conservative leader, hasn't made a major statement. No emergency press conference, no coordinated attack. Just a few bland tweets about Labour's broken promises and voters deserve clarity. Why? Because the Conservatives are watching Labour and Reform UK destroy each other, and they're waiting to pick up the pieces. Polling shows that while Reform UK is surging and Labour is collapsing, the Tories are slowly, quietly recovering. Not dramatically, just 2 to 3 points here and there. But in a fragmented electorate, 2 to 3 points can mean dozens of seats. The Conservative strategy is patience. Let Farage and Starmer fight. Let them both burn credibility: Starmer for looking like a liar, Farage for looking like an extremist conspiracy theorist. Then, in 2028 or 2029, when Britain is exhausted and cynical and desperate for normal politics again, the Tories step in as the sensible adults. It's cold, it's calculated, and it might work. But there's one more twist in this story, and it's the darkest one. What if Starmer actually is planning customs union discussions, but not because he's a secret remainer trying to betray Brexit? What if he's doing it because the economic data is so catastrophic that he has no choice? Classified Treasury projections leaked last month showed UK GDP growth for 2026 to 2030, averaging 0.8%. 0.8%. That's not stagnation, that's economic flatlining. The projections assume no major trade deal breakthroughs, continued EU friction, and demographic decline. If those numbers are real, and Treasury insiders say they are, then Starmer is facing an impossible choice: honor the Brexit mandate and watch Britain economically decay, or quietly reverse course and get crucified politically. He chose option 2, and now he's getting crucified anyway. The irony is vicious. Starmer thought he could manage this quietly. A customs union discussion here, a regulatory alignment there. Dress it up as pragmatic relationship management. Never call it Brexit reversal. Hope nobody notices until it's too late. But Farage noticed. The whistleblowers noticed. The British public, exhausted, angry, and done with being lied to, noticed. And now we're headed toward a reckoning that will define British politics for the next decade. May 8th, 2026, Windsor Castle. The summit everyone's now watching. If Starmer shows up and announces customs union talks, he's finished his government falls, Labour splits, early election chaos. If he shows up and announces nothing, he looks weak, the economic crisis deepens, and Britain drifts further into irrelevance. There's no good outcome, only different flavors of disaster. Farage knows this. He's already planning his victory speech. The question is what happens next. Does Starmer fight back? Expose Reform UK's own contradictions and funding sources? Go to war? Or does he retreat, apologize, try to rebuild trust with a public that stopped trusting him months ago? We'll find out in 94 days. But one thing is certain: the Brexit war never ended. It just went dormant. And now it's awake again, angrier and more destructive than ever. The cameras are on. The nation is watching, and someone's about to lose everything.